right. Come on, Larry, tonight. It's up, Jared. It'll be okay. I didn't notice it.
Good evening. I'd like to call the, I guess I'll leave this alone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand as we hear the invocation from Tommy Anderson and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please bow with me. Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening. We thank you for the opportunities we have to come here and to make the decisions to further our school district, to help our children as they encounter this new school year. Lord, we just pray that you'd be with them, be with our staff, be with our teachers, and all those involved, Lord Jesus, that you would bless them. Lord, we take a moment to ask you to be with the families that are bereaved at the deaths of two of our former students, Lord. And we ask you that you would be with them as well as their friends and teachers that they had, Lord, because I know it weighs heavy on their hearts, Lord. God, we just pray that you'd bless all the decisions we make and give us your wisdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Hello. Item 2.
Item 2, public to be heard. We do not have any requests this evening.
Thank you. Item 3.
Item 3, superintendent's report.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, we have two events or two reports. One will be from Dr. Jason Parker, so he'll do his athletics effectiveness report, and then I'll report on the first days of school. So we'll start off with Dr. Parker. Turn it over to you real quick.
Well, good evening, members of the board, Dr. Mendenhall, district administrators. Happy to bring our athletic department effectiveness report. And I really wanted to look at our athletic department from basically an external to an internal viewpoint. And it really starts with, for me, creating memorable moments, because that's what athletics is all about from the standpoint of our stakeholder engagement. What can be debated, the value of athletics versus academics, but I think what can't be debated is the experiential value, those memorable moments that we all come away with. And so tonight I want to talk to you about, first and foremost, our stakeholder engagement, and then we're going to get in some fundraising and then finish up with leadership. And so starting with stakeholder engagement, again, the importance of that is the fact that we are kind of the beacon for all stakeholders groups, past, present, and future. And we really hold it to heart that when we can create these memorable moments and these touch points and engagement with all levels of stakeholders, it brings a tremendous amount of goodwill to our district, to our athletic department, and to all departments within the entire school district. Next screen. So the way we do this, it starts with our future, which is our RYSA. These are our 1st through 5th graders, and this program continues to grow year after year. This fall, we have over 150 participants signed up. 75 of those are participating in flag football, and about 75 of those in cheer. And we're anticipating even more for the winter. And this year we are adding a spring flag football, which will allow so many of our tackle football players that participate in INBC, INFC, to participate with our within our flag football program. And we think that's going to be continued success. This is a great program because it's really a marketing, almost a propagandizing, if you will, of our Little Roughers, allowing them to see how it's done, engaging them and their parents, as well as a bevy of volunteers to get involved in Rougher sports and hopefully want more and want to seek continued involvement. We also have, since 2019, been engaging in mobile pep rallies, and this is basically where we take all of our Spirit Corps, from band to choir to our JRTC, of course, our cheer and dance squads, and we basically descend upon one of the elementaries and we let them know what the Rougher Spirit is all about. We do this for most home football and basketball game days. So you're talking about between 200 to 300 kids that are getting infected and engaged with the Rougher Spirit, and it's been a huge thing for us. Next screen. As far as our past and our alumni, the Athletics Hall of Fame has become a big deal. Within our Athletics Hall of Fame, we aim to honor really a cross-section of the Muskogee Athletic alumni. And so our Athletics Hall of Fame committee goes through a painstaking process in which they endeavor to choose from a cross-section of the community, obviously of former athletic alums. And we aim to choose a variety of people from different ages, sexes, ethnicities, and obviously different sports. And as a result, we've been able to engage over 150 attendees for this event, which has become something that's looked forward to every single year. And not only that, but we extend that one-time event into a bi-yearly newsletter, which we call the Rougher Roundtable, that allows us to stay connected, get information to our Hall of Fame alumni, and also cultivate some financial development. Next screen. Back one. Next, I think it's super important that we engage our current student athletes. Back when I came around 20 years ago, you just played and you were done, you got your handshake and you walked out the door. Well, we know our student athletes and our students over as a whole, the phone and social media has made creating memorable moments even more important. And so the fact that we were able to create the AD Sports Banquet, in which we honor every single senior athlete as well as some of our underclassmen. This is an event in which it's a formal event just like the Hall of Fame, and our coaches vote on specific awards like Most Improved, Most Dedicated, Rougher Overcomer, and ultimately Male and Female Athlete of the Year. This allows us both to initiate goodwill for all of our seniors because they receive a gift from the athletic department, and we know those seniors are soon to be alumni, and we want to make sure that they understand we want them to continue to be a part of our process. And it also allows for some goal setting for those younger student athletes to say, hey, one day I want to be up on this stage, I want to be recognized by my peers as well as my coaches. Next screen. Now, the way in which we engage all of these groups at one time is through our game day atmosphere. We reach out to all of our local churches. Every local pastor receives 2 free all sports passes for all of our events. All of our corporate sponsors, our citizen and civic organizations are all invited out. And so there's that community element there. There's the student element there, which our high school has done a great job engaging our students. We have student leadership as far as crowd chants, student ambassadors that help us actually organize and manage the event. And obviously, I mentioned our Spirit Corps earlier, but they do a great job just setting the tone and the culture and making it a very live event. We also endeavor to secure the environment because that's a huge part of engagement, is making sure people feel safe. And so we have tremendous support from school administration, over 30 administrators at each football event, and we actually have at least one school administrator at every single athletic event. We have over 10 officers at every football game and over 20 gate workers. And so we want people to feel safe, secure, and have a whole lot of fun when they're creating those memorable moments. Now, our stakeholder engagement actually allows us to leverage those contacts and communication and goodwill into additional fundraising, which just helps our student athletes go further faster. And so the very first way in which we do that, we've been able to cultivate what we've called the super sponsorships. Next screen. And this is our highest level of athletic sponsorship. We created this in 2019, and what this allows us to do when we talk to corporate sponsors, they wanted to have one touch point. Often they were being approached by different sports, and sometimes they felt like they were leaving some groups out. And so this enables our sponsors to connect with us and support every single program. In return, they receive exclusive signage, public address announcements at every varsity event, on-site access to connect with our patrons, and online visibility, whether it be our social media groups, our websites, or our live stream. The cost of this starts at a minimum of $2,500 a sponsor, but we have lots of sponsors who have been willing to go above and beyond in this program, and so it's a huge fundraising arm for us. Next screen. Next is our allied services. These are the people that come alongside us, not necessarily in a financial or pecuniary nature, but more so in terms of giving services. And so first is our equipment and apparel contracts, and we have done that for the last 5 years, in which we put it out to bid every 2 years, and Midwest Sporting Goods has won the bid the last 2 times we've put it out. And what they give us in return is promotional gear, which goes to help us get extra uniform gear for our coaches, shoes for our athletes, rebates, which allows us to buy much needed equipment, and even discounts in the form of school store items, or even just for anybody within our school district that wants to shop with them. We get a 35% discount on all Under Armour gear. So you can see how it saves us a ton of money. Medical providers such as St. Francis, who provides a team physician for us, who's on the sideline every Friday night. A bevy of nurses that helps us out during our physical exams and makes that into an important fundraiser for us. And also the Muskogee County IMSA, who is on site for all of our football games. These allied services save us a ton of money, and in some instances even help us make money. And lastly, our local food vendors, whether it's local restaurants giving food to feed teams pre-games, or to help us at any of our events, as well as the food trucks, which have helped us create a great environment on Friday nights. Those are all either fundraising elements for us or money saved. Next screen. Lastly, in fundraising is the school store. Okay, this has been an important element of fundraising. We're still just now recognizing its benefits. Since its inception or its opening in March, we've done over $25,000 in revenue. Now, this is not net, so we're still kind of figuring out suppliers and costs versus what our revenues actually are. But nevertheless, we think it will be an important source of fundraising for us. And not only that, but it's been a tremendous goodwill initiative for us to be able to connect with a variety of booster clubs and community groups. Lots of alumni classes reach out to us via the school store, whether they want a certain type of shirt or a new hat, for us to help them create and also help get the information out. Our school store specialist has actually become an event organizer for us. She actually not only organizes, but helps streamline all of our events and ceremonies so that there is a certain feel, there's a certain legacy that people are walking away with to say, hey, this is done really well. And I can't tell you how many people over the last 8 months have pulled us aside and say, you know, this was an awesome event, or this is an awesome facility. And so it's just been really amazing. Some of the events we've been able to put on are our Hall of Fame, our AD Sports Banquet, as I mentioned earlier. She also handles all senior nights, team banquets, and class reunions, and the list continues to grow. Next screen. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is leadership, because I'm in my 11th year as athletic director, and I'm constantly getting the question from time to time, you know, what does an athletic director do? And so all that stuff I mentioned earlier is kind of at the forefront, but it really starts from behind the scenes with the leadership. And that leadership is both dual faceted in that we're setting the tone from out front. We're setting the standards and the direction and the vision for the athletic department. And when I say we, I mean my staff, Coach Platter, our administrative assistants. But we're also getting behind and helping push and help set the tone and doing whatever it takes to help each program put their best foot forward. I tell our coaches all the time, we're like assistant coaches for every single program. Next screen. And so the way we initiate our leadership starts with bi-yearly coaches orientation. And so twice a year, we do half a day PD where we'll bring in speakers. Sometimes coaches will lead workshops. Maybe we'll follow a particular guided curriculum. Whatever the case may be, we're engaging in learning together and really setting the standard of this is what it means to be a rougher coach. We also have monthly head coaches meeting, which the Rougher Varsity Club has been a great setting for us to get not only all of our varsity head coaches, but also our junior high head coaches, because that's something that we have stressed, not only growing our own within our programs, but also, like I said earlier, we want to touch every aspect of our stakeholders in a very not only professional but thoughtful manner. And having those junior high coaches in the room has been pivotal. We also do a semester book review. We've read things like books from Urban Meyer, Vince Lombardi, as well as some other thought leaders in the space of leadership. FCA puts on a weekly Bible study, which has allowed our coaches to engage in a much more intimate and spiritual manner for those that choose to attend that. And we also do a program plan meeting for every single program at the start of their season. It's really a 16-point document that tracks every aspect of what it means to run a program. Not only where they're traveling to, what their expenditures will be, but what are the coaches' plans for growing that program and what are the expectations for the coming year. And lastly, that helps feed into our end-of-year evaluations, in which that's that accountability aspect where we go from the program plan. We execute this during practice check-ins, which are done on a weekly basis for every program, and then that lends itself to the end-of-year evaluations. Now, compliance is a huge part of what we do because there is a ton of not only paperwork, but also governing entities, whether it be National Federation of High School Sports, the OSSAA, or even just within our school district or other legal compliance that goes on. But whether it's processing our participant consent forms, each and every athlete has between 9 and 10 consent forms that they turn in before they're able to participate. And so we're always checking these to make sure that they're right, that they align with OSSA compliance, with our district policies when it comes to things like drug testing, physical exams, making sure that student athletes have had those and that they have had the right people check them has been important as well. And then the practice check-in, again, provide a lot of accountability as far as making sure these get turned in a timely manner. Now, lastly, you can't lead without actually being there, so presence is an important part of what we do. And so we actually have 21 separate athletic programs that compete for some sort of championship. And so we've been able to, we generally average about 10 events per week, whether it be home and away, and about 180 home contests every single year. So this results in about 15 extra hours a week beyond the school day in which Coach Platter and myself are working to provide coverage and make sure that our coaches and our kids feel the presence and that we're holding our entire department accountable at every level. And so I actually supposed to be at volleyball tonight, so I'll be headed there as soon as this is done. Any questions?
When you mentioned fundraising, is there anything put in place now to put our Summer Pride program back in place?
That's a great question. Summer Pride was a huge thing for us. That is kind of been under the auspices of Dr. Mendenhall and his connection with the foundation. And so I would kind of let him lead the way on that.
Yeah, we've had conversations with the city foundation in the past. We've been able to have the city foundation pay for that. We know that this last year, the city foundation really pulled back in because of typically they've had money from their dividends that they've done every year, and they've given grants to different entities. And so we backed off even our requests. And so at this point in time, we've not really replenished where that money was coming in. We don't have a plan at this point of where that's going to come from. I will say that we asked our coaches, I think mostly varsity coaches, to hold their own camps and different things in the summertime. And so I think that was done individually by each one of the programs. Where I think it's really hurt us probably the most is at that junior high or that sub-varsity area, just because I don't think they're coming as much to those events. So, but no, I think you're right. We need to figure out a way of making sure that we continue that summer pride and having those numbers. I believe we had upwards of 600-700 kids at one time going to that. But we'll definitely take that into consideration and begin to look at other funding sources to make sure that we can do that.
Another quick question, you mentioned bids on the different sporting goods. Are those sealed bids turned into the CFO or financials?
They were sealed bids. Last time we put them out, which was 2 years ago, and so that's turned into the CFO.
So you got another year coming, it's getting ready to rebid again?
This year will be our final year. I'm sorry, next year, so we'll rebid at
Okay. All right.
halfway through next year, next Christmas.
Gotcha.
Typically, we've gone with two or three groups that are able to actually bid on that. You know, kind of how it works. They go in with Nike or Under Armour, whomever, and typically try to bid to make sure that they are able to provide some of the services above and beyond just uniforms. So,
Just one quick other question, you probably not, and you don't feel comfortable answering it, that's fine. If taking a page from the State Department, 8F, where do you see yourself at?
Taking a page from the
State Department of Education as far as testing goes and what have you. I know we don't test, but where do you see athletics at?
That's a difficult question. Coach Platter, myself, and Dr. Mendenhall are always discussing this. The problem is how do you quantify athletics, right? There's such, as you said, there's a clear process grade-wise. A lot of people would put a lot of credibility into wins and losses. Obviously, that's one great way. But there are so many kids whose lives are touched, and I know you know as a coach, sometimes some of your best coaching is when you're in a losing season. And so do you measure lives touched, do you measure academic progress that's been cultivated throughout that program? So there's a lot of different factors. Me internally, just knowing where I want our programs to be, I can honestly say probably C plus, B minus. They're not where I want us to be yet. But there are a lot of great things going on as far as the things I mentioned, the leadership, the fundraising. I do, in my heart of hearts, believe we have a lot of great leaders at the head coaching level. And so if you look at it and maybe mirror it to what's going on in our district as a whole, the bond, what's going on academically, what's going on in other activities like band, it takes support from, number one, external sources, which we believe we have that now. And once you have that, just like any program, whether it be professional, college, it takes time to turn that ship around because it is indeed a ship. And so I think we're doing well within that process, but obviously we've got a ways to go.
You mentioned that you have a lot of administrators at most of the games.
Yes.
And normally, it's usually always middle school and high school that are at the games.
Yes.
So you increased that. So did you ask the other principals to volunteer, or how did you do that?
Well, for football games, it's all hands on deck. So every administrator in the district have always been there. We just increased our presence at the last football game, adding a clear bag policy as well as
I'm aware of that.
metal
I was just
detection.
talking about the presence of administrators.
Oh, it's always been the case. For the last 5 years, we've had administrators at every event, and so we haven't made any changes as far as that.
Oh, you haven't added
No,
any
no, no.
additional?
And our elementary principals also come to those football events, as well as they come to every RYSA event as well, which are Saturdays, which
Yes.
are sometimes difficult. So they do a great job supporting us in that way.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, kind of first days of school, kind of give you a report. I think I would say that the staff out in the audience probably count how many days. I want to say 16. Are we 16 days? Anybody? Okay, Dr. McIntosh, he's counting it down, he knows. 16 days of school that's occurred. We're running approximately 48, 65 students. So that's real comparable to last year. I would say for the last 2 years, we have really stayed pretty much the same, within probably 50 students either way. So we're running about 4,875. Our enrollment, the interesting thing is our enrollment at the elementary level seems to be creeping up from years past. Even the pre-K, more students involved. But I think our largest class, I could be wrong, but I think it's first or second grade is our largest class. So that's kind of good news, but somewhat alarming news, because you've got to make sure that you prepare if all of those students stay. So meaning that, would you have to build, would you have to remodel, would you have to do things as these students matriculate through the system? Dr. Parker kind of mentioned kind of switching gears. We had a situation to where there was a shooting at Choctaw High School at a game. We also had the same thing at Booker T. Washington. There was a shooting. And so both of those teams actually come here to play us. So it got our attention pretty heavily, and we really kind of went into a major mode of, thankfully we didn't have a game that week. We basically had a week off, or a week away at Putnam City, and then we came home for the game this past week. So we were giving us a little bit of time. One of the immediate things we did, and I'm proud of our team for doing this, because I think this is really tells me a lot about our communication. We put out a survey, and I don't know of any other school district that really did a survey that quickly about, what do you think? What should we do Do you feel safe? What should we do if there is, you know? And I realize that some things cannot be done overnight. You know, you can't automatically put up a bunch of fencing or buy a bunch of supplies. It's very, very difficult. One of the things that I was very surprised at was we asked the question about, you know, some type of system to where we would scan people, or any type of wanding to where we would, you know, could find some type of weaponry or firearm of any sort. And people, over 80% said absolutely, that they felt like that was a necessary step. So doing that, I'll be honest, made me feel pretty good because I felt like that the community supported that. I'm pleased to say that in, you know, with one of our board members as a police officer, he knows this, but we can never guarantee safety. But what we can do is we can do everything we can to try to help, try to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to keep those kinds of things out of these big events. A lot of people have said, well, why, if we're doing it there, why aren't we doing it everywhere? My thought is this, you know, it's really, when you think about Muskogee and the community of Muskogee, well, we have 40,000 people, and there's only a few events that we do every year that we have that many people in one location. I mean, you're talking 5,000 to 8,000 people all gathered in one location. So we felt like it was really important that we tried to do the very best to keep everyone, not just our students, not just our staff, but everyone as safe as possible. So kudos to the team that, you know, Dan Hall, Lance Crawley, Dr. Parker, all of those guys did a fabulous job of working through that. And I will tell you, all the principals that are in the room, you know, it's not, you know, they don't relish the idea often of standing on their feet for 4 hours in the heat. You know, but I will say that we're a visible presence. We're trying to do what we can to be vigilant on that. So proud of our team for that. The next thing I want to really talk about is our attendance initiative, because remember, I've talked to you guys about our attendance was really, really poor. We've done a multifaceted approach, including getting our municipal judge involved. It's been a fabulous thing so far. You know, I know we're 16 days in, but we're really doing a fabulous job of really calling, going and finding students that don't show up. If you don't show up for 4 days straight, you're probably going to get a visit from us. And so we're really staying on top of that and really trying hard to make sure that, you know, 95%, think about this, 95% attendance rate, it's a high attendance rate to have. But that's only missing pretty much 8 days in a semester, which is an equivalent of almost 2 weeks. So it's one of those things that I can't believe we have to talk about this, but it's something that's changed. I mean, the dynamic a little bit in our society has changed. I think COVID had something to do with it, but we're doing, I think, a really good job at our locations, our sites, to make sure that kids are there every day. And we're talking to parents, because we know at the elementary level, it's really the parent that you've got to really have a relationship with to make sure that they're there and they're on time. Moving on from that, I want to give you just one date that's pretty important. On Friday, October 13th, we play out of town in Tahlequah, but that will be our day that we're going to do our district showcase. If you recall last year, I want to say it was in the spring, we actually toured the community, went to different locations, and people got to get on buses and tour some of our newer sites. We will visit Sadler on the 13th, and we'll visit the high school on the 13th. We'd encourage you guys to be there. What we would do is we'll post a board meeting in case we have a quorum. Last time, I don't believe we had a quorum, but if we have more than 3 of you at that location, we need to go and have a board meeting. So we'll post that, make sure that you're involved in it, and be able to walk through both Alice Robertson and also the high school, a lot of the fine arts areas. We'll have students that will be a part of that, and student ambassadors will help lead you through all of that. What I'm excited about next semester, which will be the spring, is that we're gonna focus on programs. We're gonna go see different programs instead of just going to see buildings. So, don't know where we'll go at this point, but I'd like to do 2 district showcases a year. That gets our community involved and stakeholders an opportunity to really come in and see what we do on a day-to-day basis with our kids and our staff. So great start. I will tell you, year, I think 33 for me, and so it's been one of the better years I can remember. Of course, I'm one of those that you might as well put a helmet, shoulder pads on me because I feel like I own all of that, and I want to win everything, win every game. But I thought our kids started out the year really well. We've got a great softball team that's really doing well right now. Our band is really growing. I don't know if you heard them the other night; they were really good. So there's a lot of momentum right now. There's a lot of the environment is very, very good. So answer any questions or something that I might have left out. I know sometimes I'll ramble too much, but I've got a lot to brag about, and I think there's a lot of great things happening in Muskogee. So
Couple quick questions.
Okay.
One is, how was the overall cooperation of people entering the game with all the new things that were?
It's probably better. These guys better, I get reports back. And I think we had maybe 1 or 2 people that had, issues, if you will, but nothing so far that, out of hand.
Pretty cooperative.
Very cooperative. I'll tell you, here's how I look at it, and this is kind of how people relayed it to me, is that, back in a long time ago, all of us remember when we used to go to the airport, we could go to the gate and you wouldn't have to go through TSA. It's just kind of part of what you do. And so I think people are appreciative of that. I think the lines were a little bit long, so we're gonna get through that a little faster, hopefully next time. There's, we had to learn a lot.
There's a lot of things you put in place too, so, I mean, that's
So-
different. So I get that too.
Again, I was just proud of our people because we didn't go into this situation of we, got mad at people because they were questioning us. I mean, it was kind of like, you're not supposed to have backpacks. If you need to go back to your car, we'll take you back. So there was things like that we had to do. And but I think overall, I think it was met with some positive, from a positive perspective.
Going back to the first day of school, first week of school, or 16 days,
Can I
whatever.
interject one thing real quick before you
Sure.
ask the other question?
Yeah.
Carl Albert asked us for all of our stuff. Carl Albert said, can we borrow from what you guys have done? And so the principal, one of their central office administrators, and AD were all very complimentary. So I think that's a compliment to us because, they're a big district that, have probably had a lot of those kinds of things in place. So anyway, just thought I'd mention that.
No, didn't mean to interrupt you, but going back to the first 16 days, have we, and I know that COVID has a lot to do with non-attendance and absences, like you stated a while ago, but have we identified those students that are not attending any place that were here last year?
Typically, we've done, right after Labor Day, we've done that student reclamation program. We've talked about that, doing it again. So we get a list of kids that are not here, have not shown up, and go back out. So we're still in the process of looking at that list, going back out and checking on kids that, because sometimes they'll not send for records. And so we don't know if they haven't shown up. It frustrates me because a lot of people know that we're in school in session, but there's literally kids that don't go to school.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, I'll tell you the other thing that's changed so much, I would say the last 3 years, is the numbers of homeschool and the numbers of virtual ed that are going to other types of programs. There's more of those in our community. You know, when I drive down Muskogee and I see 3 or 4 kids crossing the street, I want to just slam on my brakes and go chase them. Like, where are you supposed to? You're supposed to be in school somewhere. But I also know that there's, you know, most of the time they're kids that are being homeschooled or being, you know, and I don't want to be negative about homeschooling. What I'm trying to tell you, and I don't think their kids are always out doing those things. But I do get frustrated when I do see kids out in the middle of the day knowing that they have not been in school. Anything else? Also want to just, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to mention that the first day of school was very nice in all 10 of the schools. Now, I didn't get to walk through AR and Muskogee High because my legs got tired. But I did go to all of our sites, and it was calm and nice, just like last
You
year.
know, one of those segways?
Oh.
That's what you need for the high school and AR, I mean, those are so big, you know, those campuses are so big. No, I really, and I said this last year, I sense a different kind of, just overall culture and environment, not only from our kids, but also our adults and our staff. There seems to be a spirit of they're happy to be there, they feel good about where they work, the students they have. It's different. It's noticeably, in my mind, what I see is different. So, but thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Item 4.
Item 4, reports, comments from members of the Board of Education.
President, I'd like to mention that the fact that yourself and Mr. Stewart and myself attended the school board state convention and heard some very good classes. And I was the keynote speaker. That might have been some of the best speech I've ever heard. But
As well, that was
yeah.
very good. So, thank you. That was fun. Item 5.
Item 5, standing resolutions, be it resolved by the Board of Education of Muskogee School District I-20 upon recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools to approve standing resolutions A through L as listed.
Good evening, Dr. Bean Hall, members of the board. I want to start with my finance report, please? And I believe y'all all should have a copy of that. Next slide, please. This is a comparison of this year and last year's general fund revenue. General fund revenue this year is quite a bit more, but the difference in that is about $250,000 of it is our increase in state aid that was for certified pay raises. We actually have already received our state textbook money, and that was $298,000. We also got a before and after school federal grant from the Muskogee Creek Nation. They had some CARES money they had to spend quickly, and we've received that up front. That's a $375,000, and we got a E-rate reimbursement of $215,000. That's the majority of the difference between this year and last year. Next slide, please. General fund expenses for the month of August, about $500,000 more this year than last year, and I would contribute most of that to increase in salaries for our staff. Next slide, please. Building fund revenue. This year's is about twice as much as last year, but it was only $3,600. This is just prior year ad valorem back taxes that are just being paid, so that's about in line. Next slide, please. Total expenses for building fund, those are within $13,000 of this year and last year. Next slide, please. Child nutrition revenue. It's in line to about $290,000 for this year, $271,000 for last year. Child nutrition expenses, $61,000 for last year and $52,000 for this year. About $9,000 difference. That's immaterial amount. Is there any questions over the finance report?
You know, Mr. Chester, it might be worthy to kind of talk a little bit about the ESSER funds and it going away at the end of the year. Kind of our transition time, making sure that anything that we've been paying out of that, either we get rid of it or it goes into the general fund.
Yeah, this, this is the last year we got to spend all of our ESSER's fund. The majority of it is for return to learn. And we've also got about $4.8 million left in the building fund that Mr. Crawley is going to get spent for me, I'm sure, real quickly. One thing that, to keep in mind about next year, right now we're paying our nurses and our Director of Health Services out of ESSER funds, so that's something that we're going to need to address next year because I know they provide some really good services to our students.
And I think Mr. Jefferson, you mentioned something about the summer pride. When he talked about federal funds, I believe years ago you guys applied for a 21st century grant, and I think that was able to fund that. So that may be something. Ms. Pillars, I think, is here. She does a great job with our federal program, so that may be something that we apply for again that we've not done, and so that might be part of that answer that you were talking about. We typically, and I know you all know this, but we typically are able to apply for federal funding just because of our high rate of students on pre-reduced, and so we qualify quite a bit. So anyway, just wanted to mention those things because I think it's, as we move forward, we've got to keep our eye on. It's kind of funny, CFOs, that's what they do. They're always looking a year out, and you always see if there's more money or more revenue. I always say, yeah, that's great. And they're always, oh, no, just be careful now. You don't want to look at that. And then when we're losing money, as I tell you, I told you, you can't spend any money. So I'm glad we've got David because he's predicting and forecasting out quite a bit to make sure that we're staying in the black.
Another thing I'm thankful for this year is the Redbud Fund that we're going to be getting for the building fund. The allocations hasn't come out yet. Those should come out in the next month or so. So that's going to help us be able to do some capital expenditure items. I'm sorry.
What is the Redbud Fund?
That is the fund that was in the previously last year. It was funded with the marijuana tax, and that didn't quite pan out. So this year in the budget deal, the state's appropriated a large amount of money for it.
It's a nice word for it, Redbud. Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure where that came out, but like I say, I don't think it it paid off like they thought it would. But
well, and it's they claim that they had less, so but the legislature has kind of put into law that they're going to have to give us more of that money. So that's good.
okay. We could go back to the agenda, and I'll start on the standing resolutions. First item, minutes of the previous meeting for August 8th. Schedule of payments, accounts payable checks, e-payables, that's payables that we pay electronically, and we get a little bit of rebate on that. So I encourage my accounts payable staff to pay as many of them as they can that way, because we earn a little bit of extra money that way. Activity fund checks and direct deposits, which is district payroll. Schedule of encumbrances 771 through 1177. Those are in your board book in numerical order. Like I say, financial report, balance sheet, financial statements are in your board report for the month of August. Item F, estimate needs. It's that time of the year to approve our estimate of needs, which is our legally adopted budget. And I want to touch on that briefly. I gave you a handout that says appropriation comparison. And I've got FY24, that's the estimate needs that you will be approving tonight, 51.8 million. FY23 was a little under 51.1 million for general fund. Building fund, 7.8 million this year. Last year was 13.7, but there was a large amount of ESSER 3 money in there. That's the difference, and like I say, that'll be going away this year. And child nutrition appropriations, 3.1 million for this year. And down below, I showed a breakdown of what makes up the general fund appropriations. It's beginning fund balance, ad valorem, which is property taxes, and miscellaneous revenue estimates, which includes state aid, state dedicated revenue such as motor vehicle collections, gross production tax and so forth, and state and federal grants. Next item, POs over 15,000. I'll let you, if you have any questions over there, I'd be happy to ask them, happy to answer them. Next item, contracts. I will point out the first one, Mutual of Omaha. This is a new one. This is to provide life insurance for the certified staff. We've always provided a life insurance policy for the support staff, so we're just trying to take care of our certified staff also. And the kind of neat deal with this, it also has a mental health component where if you need counseling services or such, that those are made available to you. Next item, sanctioning. Had 3 groups have applied for be sanctioned as outside booster clubs: Muskogee Ruffers football boosters, Friends of Ruffer baseball, and Cherokee Elementary PTO. Next item, salaried, exempt, and non-exempt salary schedules. These is the last of the salary schedules to approve. These are the ones that don't fall under MEA or MESPA. And I believe we provided them with a 6% raise, which is about the average of what the teachers and everyone else was going to receive. We got 2 new activity sub-account requests, 8th and 9th grade academy drama and Muskogee High School BPA. And board policy revisions, first reading, sick leave policy, maternity leave, family medical leave act, leave sharing, school transportation, disciplinary action, student diabetes care and management, administration of emergency opioid, and tribal regalia. And Mr. Crawley would be happy to answer any questions you might have on those items.
Remember on the first reading that we would basically put that out online, be on the website. People can come in there and make any recommendations or changes that they want. Those would be brought to you. And then typically next month, we would bring these back as a second reading and a final reading.
Is there any questions or anything over my report tonight?
I move that we approve item 5A through L.
Second.
It's been moved in second to approve item 5A through L. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Just a reminder, please let me get all your signatures on this estimate before I get out. Y'all get out of here tonight.
All right, thank you. Item 6.
Item 6, approve revisions to MPS district calendar for 2023-2024 school year. Be it resolved by the Board of Education of Muskogee School District I-20 upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve revisions to the MPS district calendar for 2023-2024 school year as presented.
This debate is my existence. We bring back calendars a lot. So there was one change, and that was we had to have quarters, and that was brought to us at the last minute from the State Department. And so we felt like that needed to be on our calendar to make sure that that was taken care of. So, Mr. Eddie, you're the one that probably knows the most about this. Is there anything that maybe you could add to that?
It was just maybe a couple of months ago, we learned from someone in our curriculum department that the state had mandated that our first quarter end by October 14th. I think October 14th was a Saturday, so we backed that up to October 13th. So we had to make our calendar reflect that. So we brought it back to you for approval. Pretty simple.
Move we approve item 6.
Second.
It's been moved in second to approve item 6. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 7,
Item 7, proposed executive session. An executive session is proposed for discussion of A, personnel recommendations A through P, names listed below, being presented for the resignation, termination, or employment of staff members with vote to be taken after return to open session pursuant to Oklahoma Statute 25 OS and 307B1. And B, EEOC claim of Ms. Ratasha Kraft as authorized by Oklahoma Statute Title 25, Section 307B1 and 7, where disclosure of information would violate confidentiality rights under state or federal law.
I move we go into executive session.
Second.
it's been moved in second that we go to executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are now in executive session.
my damn paper.
Oh, shoot. Item 8,
Return to open session and executive session minutes compliance announcement.
Time for me this one. All members of the Board of Education are present at the meeting attending the executive session. Dr. Jared Mendenhall was asked to participate in executive session. On executive session, the board discussed only the following items: personnel recommendation A through P, names listed, being presented for the resignation, termination, or employment of staff members, with a vote to be taken after return to open session pursuant of Oklahoma Statute 25 OS 307B1. And item B, EEOC claim of Ms. Latasha Kraft as authorized by Oklahoma State Statute Title 25, Section 307B1-7, or disclosed of information would violate confidentiality rights under state and federal law, as authorized by Oklahoma Statutes Title 25, Section 307B1 and 7. No other matters discussed, no votes were taken. The board returned to open session at 7:43 p.m.
okay. Item 10,
Item 10, personnel, be it resolved by the Board of Education of Muskogee School District I-20, upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, to approve personnel resolutions A through P as stated.
I move that we approve item 10, A through P.
Second.
it's been moved and second to approve item 10A through P. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion pass. Item 11,
Item 11, discussion and vote to settle or not settle EEOC claim of Ms. Ratasha Kraft.
Madam President, I move that we not settle the EEOC claim of Miss Ratasha Kraft.
Second.
it's been moved and second that we not settle EEOC claim of Ms. Ratasha Kraft. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? I oppose. Motion carries. Item 12,
Item 12, new business. There is none.
okay. Item 13,
Adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
it's been moved and second that we adjourn. All